governance. We're going to talk about governance, why it is critical for your business growth. Governance, why it is critical for your business growth. And my focus really is on small and medium enterprises. Why small and medium enterprises? Because, well, they run 80% of the economy in Africa. So yes, we have the larger entities we've worked with. I love working with them. I love doing work for them. But I find a lot more impact and a lot more of a need in the small and medium enterprises. And they're the ones who keep asking, do I really need a board? I'll get a board when I get big. When I'm like Coca-Cola, when I'm like MTN, I'll get a board. And that's why I want to address myself to just the basics of us having a board as small and medium enterprises and see what we can learn from there. So that's briefly what we are going to go through. Great. So we're going to cover just a bit of an intro in which I'll use a governance house model just to give a bit of an intro. And then we'll dig in and talk about the role of the board in our small and medium enterprise with respect to oversight, foresight, and insight. And then we'll talk about how to compose our board. And we'll talk about a bit of the governance context as well in Uganda with some of the SMEs that we have here. And then I'll shed some little light about the rental board bit that we brought to play. So that's what we're going to cover in this short time. So as a way of introduction, I'll start off by just looking at why a business exists. I'm using a house model, like I said, and every business really exists to meet a need. And if your business doesn't really exist to do that, then we go back and rethink. The relevance of the business is a question. So the foundation, if you like, for any business is what need are we meeting out there? What customer need are we meeting out there in the market? That's the foundation. And then beyond the foundation, then you have the pillars that form the business. And then you look at the people. Who are the people that are running this business? And by this, I'm not talking about HR department, finance department. It is not just who are the people, the quality of the people, the value sets, who are the people that are running. That's a strong pillar in a business. The money that we're using to run the business. Where is it coming from? How are we managing it, etc. I like the bit I just call things. Again, I like to keep it simple. It's the physical bits that we have, the equipment that we have, all the physical things that we have to run the business. That's, again, another strong pillar for business. And then there's technology. And by technology, I don't mean ICT in this case only. I'm just talking about how we do business. What technology do we use to do business? If you're trying to get water from a well, and what you use is a pail to get it out, that's the technology. How do we do business? That's a strong pillar for business. Now, all these, once we have a great foundation and we have the pillars, there could be others, but this is just what I wanted to bring out here as just the key pillars that we would have. And then the governance gives us the cover, just at the top, covering the people, covering the money, covering the things, covering the tech. If you think about a house, let's think about what would happen if it rained on your house at night, or if the sun is shining bright onto your house. You're not covered, you're exposed. So when the rainy day comes and you're not well covered, then that's when the problems come. When it doesn't rain, it feels like everything is okay. We're doing well. The people can do what they're doing. The money is doing what it should be doing. With our tech, it's not raining, but the day it rains is when you figure out, oh, we should have had a roof, and that is governance. And shortly, I'm just going to dig into then what that means for us. What is the role then of governance in providing that cover, in providing the roof for our small and medium enterprise? And before that, I just summarize this really in that saying that a business without governance is a house without a roof. A business without governance is just like a house without a roof. So quickly, let's talk about the role of the board. And again, the role of the board, I just bring that into three key areas, simplifying it into three key areas. One is oversight, one is foresight, and one is insight. Oversight, foresight, and insight. Oversight is really just about checking that all is as should be. Is everything running the way it should? And we are going to talk about that a bit shortly, a bit more in detail, checking that all is as should be. And then looking at foresight, you're talking about giving direction to the future, for the future, direction for my business, for my SME, for the future. And finally, looking at insight, you're looking at giving some insights into deep issues, deep understanding of different issues that the entity is facing, that the entity has to deal with. And again, I'm going to go into a bit of detail, one by one, each of these. Let's talk about oversight. What your board will help you to do as an SME is to pick out areas of risk. What are some of your top risks? Top 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 risks, you know? And each time you're meeting, these are some of the areas they want to keep looking at. How are we covering our biggest risks? Not all the risks, just the top risks, the kind that are going to put you out of business in the event that they're not well catered for. And when you're running your own business, many times you forget about some of those things and you just go about running the business. But they help you to keep you honest, to come back and ask you, how are we doing? First of all, what are our risks? Have we identified them right? Or are there major risks that we have left out? So what are they and how are we mitigating them? What controls do we have in place to mitigate some of our top risks? Performance issues. Again, we come up with key performance indicators and they're looking at top 5 KPIs. I put 5 to 10, but even 5 could be enough. What are top 5 KPIs? How are we performing on them quarter by quarter? That is a key role of the board in providing the oversight. Laws and regulations. How are we complying with our different laws and regulations that we have? I chair many entities like mentioned by Fred. I chair, for instance, a school. And during this time, we've been providing a lot of oversight. So the school maybe would come up and say, we want to do X, Y, and Z. And immediately would say, how does that relate with what the Ministry of Education has shared, for instance? That is oversight. And it was very easy for them to have gone off had we not been there to help with some of those things. They work with internal audit and external audit that helps to be able to provide the oversight function. They are the eyes and the ears into the business to help the board to be able to get information. They are responsible for CEO or ED appointment and evaluation. And we'll talk about that a bit later as we talk about the context in our small and medium enterprises. So if you like, summarizing on oversight, the role of the board in doing oversight is outsider looking in mode. You're from the out, you're independent, you're objective, and you're looking in to see another pair of eyes. That is getting to see what others may not be able to see when they are in the business. Sometimes if someone visits you in your home, it's when they get to see, oops, there's some cobweb in the top left corner. You've been there every day. You don't see them anymore because you live there. But once a guest comes in, they get to see that there is something up there. That's oversight. That's what oversight is doing, outside looking in. Another way I can put it is nose in, sniffing what is happening in, but hands out, meaning that the board should not be in running what's in the business. They're not in. Their hands are out, their nose is in. Nose in, hands out. That allows them to have the objectivity, that allows them to have the independence, that allows them to be able to provide good value to you as an organization. So that is a bit about oversight. The other bit we've mentioned is foresight. Foresight is more about strategic thinking. Now, I'm not saying strategic planning, but strategic thinking. Many of us in the SMEs come up with a strategic plan or business plan. I'm sure those who came up with a plan 2029 to 2025, a couple of months ago, you began saying our plan has been overtaken by events. Because we did a plan. Strategic planning is an event. It's done once, and then you wait for the 5 years or maybe mid-plan review. But strategic thinking is ongoing. It's an ongoing process. All the time you're thinking about how to apply the futures of the company that the company is taking. That is something the board should continue helping an organization to do. The plans are not bad, but the thinking is more important because it's continuous. And then beyond strategic, you're looking at strategic issues and operational issues. I have found boards that spend time dealing with operational issues. Marketing, are we going to use flyers and all these things? HR, are we going to pay this much money to so and so and not so and so? I mean, those are operational. The strategic issues should be, if it's payroll, how do we value our staff and what percentage of our income or of our expenses are we going to spend on staff? If we say it's 40%, 30% because of the nature of business, let management go ahead and deal with the detail. You end at that point. That's how I'm able to chair as many boards as I do, because we don't spend so much time doing a lot of operational things. We're giving direction based on strategic areas. Normally, you'd spend about 30 to 50% of your time in foresight, looking ahead. The most boards I find spend a lot of their time in oversight, just looking at the history, what happened in the past. Manager comes, the CEO comes, makes a presentation. After the presentation, people discuss, but by the time the meeting is ending. And yet you want people to have read the papers before, and they're coming into the meeting and just discussing and giving the insights. Right, alternative futures. Well, not many companies probably would have thought about COVID-19, for instance, coming up. But they could have thought about a certain future where, for instance, you cannot access your office, as an example. You could say, what if I could not access my office by whatever reason, whether it's by a strike or political something or whatever it is, then you would have put in place already strategies that help you to go through times such as this. We did a bit of that in my company, and we were able, even before, say, the lockdowns came up, we were able to easily switch because we thought about what would we do if we were not able to access our office as an alternative future, as an example. So if you like, foresight is about outside, about inside, looking out mode. So the board is coming inside the organization and is looking out with you. See what is outside there, scanning what is out there, taking management along with them on the ride. Great, and then insight. This is what I really love, the deeper one, but where most boards do not really allocate quite enough time. Insight is not really about giving solutions, about giving answers, about you going to the board and asking, how do we do this or how do we do that? It is about the board asking you questions. You said we're going to do this. Have you considered this? Have you considered that? How about this? How about that? The time a company was going to try and do strategies going out and trying to get into markets across Africa. And there were questions around, have you considered the legal regulations in those places? Have you considered questioning? They're not giving me answers, but have you considered reflecting? And it can be quite unstructured. So it's not like oversight where management simply comes and gives reports and you respond to them. It can be quite unstructured, but the chair of the board needs to give time for insights, for unstructured conversation that will give deep analysis into where the organization should be going. If you like, the role of the board there is coming from a been there, done that. You know, you're taking an organization to a place where you've been. Right now, yes, we're looking at COVID-related cases. crisis, and we've not had COVID before, but we've had recessions in the past. For instance, we've had certain crises in the past that people have gone through, that they have read about, that they can help us navigate the current times that we're facing. So if you like, in summary, we have oversight, foresight, and insight as the key roles of the board. I'm given 30 minutes only to run through this. I normally go through this in a much longer time with very relevant examples, but I hope we can be able to ask questions a bit later. Right. Now, how then do you compose, your board once you're clear about the roles of the board? 3 considerations. You should get a person that is willing to be on your board. You should get a person that is able. You should get a person that is available. Now let's think about this. Simple English words: willing, able, and available. Again, I have seen people called on boards that are just dragged there, just dragged there. Please be on my board, please be on my board. They're not really willing. They have the capacity, they're able, maybe they're available, but they're just not willing. You will not get the best out of it. Sometimes you find someone who is really willing to give of their all and they're available, but they don't have the competence. They don't understand strategy. They don't understand finance or legal issues, and they can't be useful to you. And then the worst I've found has been those that are willing and are very able, but not available. You just can't hold a meeting. You call for a meeting and the person is not available. You call for the next and they're not available. You don't want that person on your board. I call those rhinos. So we shouldn't look for rhinos, those who are really here in name only. Those who just be happy to be put on the board and their name is on the board. Hey, I chair this board or I serve on this board, but they're not giving value to the organization. You don't want those on your board. Talking about, again, composing the board, I have 3 scenarios of the governance challenge we're facing, say in Uganda in this context. Some countries in Africa as well, but I look at Uganda. Now, 1, remember we said that the board appoints, the CEO appoints the MD. But of course, we know with our SMEs that it is the CEO who is the owner of the business and who appoints the board. They can sack the board. We have many businesses in town here who have tried to appoint a board. The owner, and that's a reality. I'm not saying it's bad per se, but it's a reality that the CEO owns the company, they appoint the board, and they can sack the board. Now, who is accounting to who? In such a case, if you have appointed the board, you've got to subordinate yourself to them to demonstrate that you're accountable to them. Otherwise, you will not get the best out of it. So we've had some of those. Then we've had boards that are based on representation. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just giving an example, for instance, of NSSF. Do we have workers represented? Do we have this group represented, that group represented? It's not that they're competent, they could, but probably by chance, not by design. So where you're just looking at representation, okay, 5 shareholders, everyone just bring a board member. Sometimes it's just representation and you don't get the best out of it. In some cases, you have election. Now, associations, investment clubs, circles, cooperatives, we have many of these. They draw from their membership. And again, competence is by chance of someone being on the board is by chance, not by design, just by chance. So based on that, this is how we then came up with what we called rent a board. What you hear, the way you rent a house, rent a board. Came up with a very simple concept that allows us to be able to provide governance services to SMEs that are thinking, where do I get the right people? Where do I get the right competencies that can help me to go through this particular journey as a business? So we have a nice small board of, it's not one, there are multiple small boards that we come up with, 5 people, the board chair, secretary, an operations expert that is an expert in your area. If you have a microfinance institution, for instance, you have someone who understands that industry very well in those operations and HR. finance, sales and marketing, etc. Within the board, you have all the key skill sets that required to be able to help the business to be able to thrive and to go through, provide oversight, insight, and foresight. This wasn't really about rent a board, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. But if you want more information, please feel free to go to info@acclaimafrica.com and you'll be able to be served. If you want to find out how does it work, there'll be more information right there. Great. So I'd like to spare a bit more time for discussion, and that's why I'd like to close it at that point by saying, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. And indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.